Hello, I'm Lisa Thompson, the State Board of Equalization's Taxpayers' Rights Advocate. Taxpayers and stakeholders are invited to this year's Taxpayers' Bill of Rights hearing before the elected members of the State Board of Equalization on Tuesday, August 27, 2024 at 10 a.m. You can participate in person, by phone, or submit written comments before the hearing. We welcome comments, suggestions, or concerns about California's property tax system, the annual report, and the alcoholic beverage tax program. For more information, please visit www.boe.ca.gov/TRA. We look forward to your participation.
Everything to come into place. Okay. Great. Well, we are back, and our next item is item 9, the California insurance market. And this item is presented by Vice Chair Gaines. Mr. Gaines.
Great. Yes, thank you very much. As you recall, in February of 2024, I convened an informational hearing on California's insurance market, specifically how a lack of available, affordable insurance has turned into a severe statewide crisis. At the informational hearing, the board heard from representatives from the insurance and building industries, the California Department of Insurance, homeowners and real estate associations, to gain an understanding of how the current insurance climate has affected real estate sales and affordability, which ultimately impacts property values and property tax assessments. I request that the board approve a follow-up hearing, which would be held in October of this year, to address the following issues, but not limited to this. First would be the fire season losses and the insurance market health. Where are we? How have things changed since February? An update on the Department of Insurance's regulation development and implementation. It's my understanding we're still waiting on those regulations. An understanding of the relationship between insurance premiums and housing prices. The effect of insurance premiums on public entities and their ability to provide services, and lastly, insurance costs and California's ability to build affordable housing. And so I look forward to this. I think some progress has been made, although it's been slow, but I think we need to bring the parties together and get some updates, and hopefully even by October we'll have more to report on and maybe more progress. But I'm talking to folks all the time, and they're struggling, and a lot of people are being non-renewed, and they're struggling to find more new coverage, and costs are going up, home values are dropping, all sorts of challenges. So thank you.
Thank you. Questions or comments? Mr. Emron.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair. I want to thank you, Senator Gaines as well, Vice Chair Gaines, for bringing this item back, because I feel like we do have some unfinished business here. And I think from the first hearings, there was incredible momentum. We heard from a lot of stakeholders, but we know in a problem like this is so widespread and so big that there needs to be a solution, and that solution should come sooner than later. And hopefully we're all working all hands on deck. This is one of the most valuable insurance markets in the world. That is the state of California. So this is not happening because there's not money or things like of that nature to be made, but more so because there's a deep core issue that this Board of Equalization is well positioned to figure out. And I think we fully support and the controller as well in continuing these hearings and really get into the bottom of this, because the taxpayers and the citizens of California are depending on us. We're going through a very hard wildfire season right now too, and to see people's homes get burned without any type of remedy or any type of blanket to fall under is pretty heartbreaking. When we talk about people leaving this state and that rhetoric too, this is a huge part of it. And I know we have high gas prices and high grocery prices, but insurance is something that everyone every single person deserves to have in their home. So once again, applaud you, Senator Gaines, and looking forward to our hearings in the coming months. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Vasquez.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Vice Chair Gaines, for proposing a second hearing. I think it was so enlightening and and good information that came out at the February one. And I know we weren't able to answer all the questions. And, this is constantly changing. And as I hear from not only our insurance commissioner, but just a lot of folks that are in that arena, that we need to do more. And I think it'd be a little bit more aggressive on this issue because I constantly, we were constantly getting calls on folks that are losing coverage.
Right.
And as we're looking at, this affordable housing piece that we've been trying to work on, these developers are having a tough time, especially if they're anywhere close to what they consider a high-risk area or county to get insurance, to get coverage. So really looking forward to it because I know in my district alone in Los Angeles, the insurance crisis is impacting a lot of the exempt properties and a lot of the folks that are trying to secure public funding to build, this much needed affordable housing. And in fact, 7 of the largest California insurers have limited their property coverage on millions of property owners, and I'm sure you're seeing it in even the rural communities as well, and counties. So really looking forward to it, and hopefully we can begin to start answering some of these questions and actually in bringing some of the stakeholders together to see if we can't come up with some solutions to at least be a player and someone to assist in this process.
Right. No, that's great. Thank you. I think the regulations will be really helpful because once there's an understanding in terms of what's expected through the regs, there'll be clarity for the insurance companies in terms of what their obligations are. One of the things that's I find very frustrating is I've talked to a lot of folks that have done what the insurance company had an issue with. So if they had an issue with the roof, and then you resolve the roof, and they still got non-renewed. And it seems to me there ought to be an obligation that if you're doing what the insurance company saw as a risk and you're addressing that risk, that there's, in my opinion, has to be an obligation by the insurance company to satisfy that coverage situation. Yeah. And I would say the same thing also for the hardening regulations that the insurance commissioner's been working on. I think, hey, if you're following the guidelines and satisfying that obligation, then coverage has to be provided. And so I think the regulations will provide that clarity. We just can't get those regs fast enough because in the meantime, we're going through chaos.
Mr. Schaefer, did you have any questions or comments at this stage?
No, Madam Chair, I don't.
Thank you. I think that one of the most valuable pieces for me at our last hearing was hearing about the FAIR plan and what the status of it is. And I'd really like to know a year later, so if it's possible to get an update from them.
Absolutely.
And then I don't know if they would be willing to come and testify, but the chief consultants from the insurance committees to talk about if there's going to be any committee legislation for next year that would touch on this and would touch on the nexus between housing values and therefore property taxes and the situation with the fires. And then I know that a couple of well, at least one of the major consumer groups is not active any longer, but if we could also request a consumer group to come in and talk about it, because what I've been hearing from my constituents is that they're very relieved to get coverage back from entities like State Farm, but it's at such a greatly increased rate. But they just feel like are happy to have any coverage at all right now. So if we can look at, and our staff can help to ferret out some good consumer voices to add into it. But I'm very happy to see this topic come back because it is a huge one for our constituents. Mr. Emron.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and those are some awesome, great recommendations. And if I can make one as well, if we can have CAL FIRE as well come speak. We've been talking about mitigation efforts, home hardening, and just kind of seeing their strategy around these wildfires too, to see which areas we can target that are most prone, and kind of get more data too. Thank you.
That's great. Those are great suggestions. I'd like to include all of them, and if I could get your assistance and who we ought to be talking to so we can include them in the agenda.
Great.
That'd be great.
It'd be very helpful.
Thank you.
Okay, other questions or comments? And seeing none, we could go out for our public comment. We do not have any written comment nor comment cards from the auditorium, so we'll go to our AT&T moderator. Moderator, if you would please let us know if there's anyone on the line who would like to make a public comment on item 9.
If you would like to provide public comment for item 9, please press 1, then 0 at this time. That command again, 1, then 0. And we have no comments.
Thank you. And we don't have a motion on this yet, but Mr. Gaines, I'm assuming that you would like to make the motion.
Yeah, so moved in terms of our second informational hearing on the California insurance market.
Okay.
Second.
Mr. Emron will second. And the only change from what was attached to the public agenda is that it would be the second day of our October meeting rather than our November meeting.
That's correct. Thank you.
So great. We've got a motion from Mr. Gaines and a second from Mr. Emron to hold the second hearing on this topic on the second day of our October meeting. And Mr. Ketty, if you would please call the roll.
Chair Lieber.
Aye.
Vice Chair Gaines.
Aye.
Member Vasquez.
Aye.
Member Schaefer.
Aye.
Deputy Controller Emron.
Aye.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. And thank you for bringing this forward, Mr. Gaines and Mr. Vasquez, for the earlier item, and your willingness to swap months was great. So our next item is item 10, the Executive Director's Report. And we have Ms. Stowers approaching. Not quite there yet.
They're still not live.
Should it be red or green?
Oh, that one that you were just on is good now.
Hello?
Yes,
I can hear myself.
it's great.
Good afternoon, Chair Lieber and honorable members. I'm Yvette Stowers, Executive Director for the State Board of Equalization. My report today will be brief, as this month's focus on the various quarterly reports that will be presented by my excellent executive team. Members, I would like to begin by welcoming everyone to our new meeting location here at the state-of-the-art May-Lee State Office Complex. After extensively searching for a new building site, the May-Lee State Office Complex was identified as the best choice. It has been a long journey, and I would like to take a moment to thank the Department of General Services and their leadership team for the use of this facility. I would also like to thank CDTFA Media Production Team and their assistants. And most importantly, I would like to thank BoE Board Proceedings and Support Services for the excellent job that they have done in providing this facility and making this a streamless process. Mm-hmm. So, I want to say Mary, Kathy, Michelle, Rosemary, Dean, Lucy, Jennifer, Indu, and on the support side, Terry, Janae, Charles, Amy, Dennis, Kim, and Melinda. Thank you guys so much for making this happen for us. Your work behind the scene, fabulous. Thank you.
Yeah.
We know who runs everything over here.
Oh.
Next, members, I would like to highlight a few upcoming events that the BoE will participate in over the next 30 days. The first event is that I have been asked to serve as a panel member at the Leadership Academy hosted by UC Davis Graduate School of Management. This is in partnership with the California Assessors Association, the County Recorders Association, and the California Association of Clerks and Elected Officials. The Leadership Academy will take place at UC Davis for 4 days, July 22nd to July 25th. I will be speaking on the 24th. BoE staff will be participating again this year. A member from the supervisory team in Southern California has been asked and signed to the Academy, Mr. David Dotson. Members, as part of our succession planning and to meet our agency's strategic goal of developing the next generation of property tax leaders, we are thrilled to continue our involvement in the Leadership Academy. Next, members, I would like to remind everyone that on August 5th through August 8th, Northern California Assessors Association will hold their regional conference in Placer County. This is an annual conference and it's an excellent opportunity for the CAA and BoE to discuss further ways to work together. I want to thank those board members who have registered for this event. Additionally, as in the past, several BoE staff will be attending the conference. Working in partnership with the assessors is critical to our mission, and I want to thank NCAA for their invitation. Finally, the final event that I would like to highlight is the upcoming Appraisal Institute seminar. Mr. Dave Young, Deputy Director for the Property Tax Department, has been invited by the Appraisal Institute to present at the August 9th seminar. Members, as you may recall, Mr. Paul Chandler of the Appraisal Institute presented before the board on workforce development and appraisal training, along with other stakeholders, including the Bureau of Real Estate Appraiser. Out of that meeting, Mr. Chandler and Mr. Young have continued conversations on our shared issues of appraisal training, resulting in this invitation. This is an excellent opportunity to work with our stakeholders in our community and our commitment to workforce development. This event will be held remotely, and as such, there will be no associated travel costs. Workforce development, I was going to make a little comment that it's an excellent opportunity to recruit. Members, that concludes my report on item 10, and my executive team, like I said, will follow me and provide their quarterly reports. I am available to ask any questions you may have on item 10.
Great. Are there any questions? Mr. Vasquez?
Yes, thank you for your opening remarks. And as you mentioned, the UC Davis leadership, that's fairly new. I'm assuming it's only been, a couple of years since that's been up and running?
This is the second year. They've always had some type of leadership training for the assessor staff, but they renewed it. So, yeah, it's new.
Seeing that it's a new venue or a new event, I guess, for us in terms of outreach, I'm assuming we're able to set up tables there for the BoE to kind of do some outreach?
For the academy or for the Appraisal Institute?
For the institute, or for this, I guess the conference. It's basically a conference, no?
It's
Or is it open? I don't know if it's an
It's-
open-ended.
It's it's the academy, it's training where various county officials have their staff going, and the county assessors are allotted 10 spots. And of those 10 spots, the county assessors have given us one.
Oh,
So we do send, we look to our supervisors and managers within the property tax world to see if they would like to attend. And we have identified one to go this year. We had another one go last year. We had Holly Cooper go last year. But as far as an opportunity to recruit, I see any event as an opportunity to recruit. And I'm open to say I will put on my Peter Pan hat and I will take your staff.
not at all.
Good. Yeah, excellent. Other questions from Ms. Stowers at this juncture? And I want to see this Peter Pan hat in action. I picture you being really swift with the taking, too. Well, thank you so much for this report, and I doff my hat as well. It's not a Peter Pan hat, but my hat to all of our staff who are involved in the move here, and for coordinating with DGS, and to our CDTFA audiovisual staff. I was so glad to see them at this location for us this morning. We really, really appreciate all your hard work on it. And so we'll go on now to item 11, which is the extension of time to complete local assessment roles. And this is also presented by Ms. Stowers.
Members, Revenue and Taxation Code 616 requires county assessors to annually complete their local assessment role by July 1st. Section 155 provides that the board or the executive director may extend the time by 30 days. In the case of public calamity, we may extend the time by 40 days. Section 155 also requires the executive director to inform the board of any such extensions at its next regular scheduled meeting. This report is to inform you that Amador, Imperial, Napa, and San Bernardino County assessors have requested and have been granted a 30-day extension for completing their 2024 local assessment role. Thank you. And that completes my report.
Thank you. Any questions? This is an informational only item, so we appreciate the notification of that. Thank you so much. Ms. Renati, we're going on now to item 12, Operational Priorities Report and Quarterly Budget Report, presented by Ms. Renati.
Good afternoon, Chair Lieber and honorable members. I am Lisa Renati, Chief Deputy Director. Today, I'll report on some of the agency's operational priorities and projects. I am delighted to share some positive developments regarding our efforts to bolster our workforce and enhance our agency's efficiency. Since our last meeting, we have successfully filled 3 positions. 2 are promotions, and the other is a professional new to the BoE. Through consistent and proactive recruitment initiatives, we have kept our vacancy rate to 11%, which reflects our dedication to building a robust team. We have initiated recruitment activities for our remaining vacancies, and we hope to hire more staff in the coming months. As we look to the next fiscal year, we are gearing up for recruitment activities and events to continue to attract a diverse pool of candidates to the BoE. The next item is workforce development. State agencies must provide all employees with specific training courses according to statute and civil service rules. Some courses must be completed annually and others every 2 to 4 years. The training includes important topics such as ethics, information security, anti-nepotism, and harassment prevention. To ensure all BoE employees timely complete these state-mandated courses, all BoE employees complete specific courses of that mandated training each on a cycle. These are provided online and they're self-paced. This agency-wide training cycle eliminates the need to track individual employees based on their start dates, and it allows us to efficiently ensure that everyone has completed the courses and we document that they've completed the courses. Based on the most recent training cycle, all BoE employees completed mandated state and agency training regarding information security, disclosure awareness, anti-nepotism, and individual accountability for equity and inclusion. We continue to also emphasize our succession planning and training to equip our staff with the necessary skills. They need to take on more significant roles that they will have to come and take in the future as we bring more people on board. And this past month, our supervisors attended an instructor-led course regarding performance management topics. And the last item is the fourth quarterly budget report for fiscal year 23-24. Most of BOE's budget appropriation is allocated for personal services, payroll, and benefits. The remainder, about 14%, is for operating expenses. The accounting department is currently working on end-of-year reconciliations to ensure all costs regarding travel and any O&E purchases are accounted for. But based on the available information, BOE is projected to expend 84% of our budget appropriation. As you may recall, last year for fiscal year 2022-23, BOE expended 86% of our allocated funding. The reduction in our expenditures for this fiscal year is a testament to this board's commitment to the efficient and effective use of funds necessary for the operation of BOE's constitutional duties and the voluntary compliance with the governor's action to reduce general fund expenditures by ensuring all funds expended are mission critical. Members, this concludes my presentation. I'm available to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you. Questions, Mr. Vasquez?
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Ms. Renati, for your presentation. I'm always impressed on how aggressive you're able to fill these positions. And when you mentioned, I guess we're down to an 11% vacancy rate.
Yes.
How does that fare with other state agencies? I'm assuming it's good, but I don't know.
Well, it's very low. The average is, some agencies have a very high vacancy rate, and some have a very low rate. Those with low rates typically are the very, very small agencies. Although we think we're small, there are some that are much smaller than us. So we are really low. We are doing very well, especially since we know we have employees that have long-standing service with the state, and when they retire, we have to pay them for their unfunded liabilities of their vacation time, which is why we also monitor unfunded liabilities and ask people to take their vacations. Not only is it good for work-life balance, but it also reduces that unfunded liability. So we're very tight right now. So as we fill the remaining vacancies, which we are really focused on doing, we will get very close. So then when that happens, that's where we'll start looking at our OE&E and making sure we really tighten our belts on travel, tighten our belts on necessary purchases.
Yeah, I appreciate it, because I noticed, you mentioned also about just the expenditure side of the house as well, on the budget, that we're doing a real good job in terms of being very efficient.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Vasquez? I'm sorry, Mr. Gaines.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. I just, I wanted to highlight that we were at 86% of budget for 2023, and we're at 84% for 2024. So it's just impressive that we're able to live under budget. Just highlighting what Member Vasquez said in terms of the vacancy rate and continuing to knock that down over time. So, yeah, thank you. Appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Great. Any other questions or comments? Okay, seeing none. Thank you so much. And we'll go on to item 13, which is our Chief Counsel quarterly report presented by Mr. Scott.
Hello again, Norm Scott, Acting Chief Counsel. As Chair Lieber just announced, I'm here to present the quarterly report for the period from April through June. I'd like to begin my report by, we think, a very high note. I'm sorry, I'd like to begin my report before that. Got to read my notes here. I want to make sure to thank the very talented attorneys and staff in the legal department for all the great work that they do. They provide exceptional legal services to the executive staff, the board, other departments in the agency, assessors' offices, and the public. Consistently high level of performance, and it makes all of our jobs easier. So I just want them to know that we all appreciate them very much. I provided a summary of my report as an attachment to item 13 on the agenda, and I hope you had a chance to review that. Now for the good news. In May, we welcomed a new attorney to the legal team. Her name is Krishma Malhotra, and she began working on property tax matters and will be representing the State Assessed Property Division in property tax appeals during the upcoming appeal season. Krishma is new to state service, having come from the Stanislaus County District Attorney's Office. She's off to a great start, and we're very excited to have her as part of our team. We're also actively recruiting to fill 2 additional attorney positions at the current time. Some of our other workloads, we received 66 Public Record Acts requests during this past quarter. And as you can see from the summary, this is a very steady workload for us. We completed 62 of the 66 requests and are working on the remaining 4 requests as we moved into July. We were served with 16 new litigation cases during the last quarter. Of those, 3 were dismissed, so we now have an active inventory of 31 litigation cases. Legal staff provided a detailed litigation update to the board in the closed session of the meeting last month, and further details about the individual cases can be found on our public litigation roster. Also, as outlined in the summary, we received and completed 4 assignments from the Executive Officer Board Proceedings Division, providing legal analysis and advice on administrative issues. One of our other consistent workloads is publications review, where we review property tax and other publications, including surveys, manuals, legislative analyses, letters to assessors, and tax annotations, among other things. We completed 64 of these assignments during the last quarter and have 6 in progress. The last 2 cases in the 2023 property tax appeals season were completed during this quarter. That involved finalizing and publishing the Section 40 opinions for decisions that the board had decided in December, and then decisions that were adopted by the board after the first of the year. And we're preparing for the beginning of the 2024 appeals season, which will begin very shortly. During this quarter, we also completed a rulemaking project implementing and making clear Revenue and Taxation Code Section 469 to provide county assessors with flexibility in meeting their audit requirements. Beginning with the 2019-2020 fiscal year, assessors can meet the requirements of Section 469 by completing the 4-year total of required annual audits within the 4-year period, as opposed to being required to complete a minimum number of audits each year. We also began a rulemaking project to amend Property Tax Rule 135 to reflect changes in Revenue and Taxation Code Section 465. This change addresses how and how long documents obtained from taxpayers and certain first-time exemption claims must be stored and preserved. To implement these changes, staff is beginning a rulemaking project which will apply to homeowners' property tax exemption claims. A letters to assessor was announcing this project was sent out just last week on July 16th. Also in the enclosed summary, I provided information that the legal department responds to requests for legal advice from the department's tax programs, assessors, and the public. These requests originate from emails, letters, memoranda, and telephone calls. Responses can sometimes be handled in a single telephone call, and others but other times proper responses requires detailed analyses based upon written memoranda. We completed 65 of these assessments during the second quarter and have 19 of these requests in progress. So that's an overview of what we've been up to for the last 3 months, and we'll complete my report unless you have any questions.
Any questions? Mr. Vasquez and then Mr. Gaines.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Mr. Scott, for your report. I was just wondering, in this quarter, did you notice any trends that are developing that could possibly require more assistance or support staff?
I think we are seeing a fairly steady workload in the workloads we depend upon. We haven't seen a significant uptick nor a significant downtick. We have tried to reach out to assessors and engage with them as much as possible. That's one of our ongoing workloads where we get questions or requests for guidance in that area. And so where we can, if we have a chance to catch our breath, we will do that to increase the collaborative nature of our relationship. But overall, I would say the workload has maintained somewhat steadily, although we do expect to ramp up. The appeal season is always the busy time. That starts this month and will continue through the end of the year and probably into the first few months of next year. So we have been trying to get our ducks in a row as much as we possibly can on what we do have in the inventory so that we'll be prepared for that and be able to handle those appeals as promptly and as timely as we can.
Well, you kind of answered my second question. I was thinking next quarter, I know with the appeals hitting, do you anticipate any issues in terms of workload and in terms of resources in your department?
Yes, the appeals deadline just happened yesterday. So we have not seen the number or the nature of the appeals yet. I don't know if it's going to be a busy year, it's going to be a slow year. That information will unfold in the next few weeks as we work with board proceedings to look at the cases and decide which ones will be valid and accepted as appeals. So we'll have a much better view at that time. Although everything I'm hearing just anecdotally is we anticipate at least an average year for appeals, but I don't have any numbers or any particular trends at this time.
Thank you.
Thank you. Vice Chair.
Hello? Hello? Hello?
Oh, that's Mr. Schaefer.
Oh, okay.
I'm sorry, Mr. Schaefer, your video went out, but should I put you on the list to ask a question? Mr. Schaefer, I'll get you on the list. We have Mr. Gaines, Mr. Emron, and then we'll take Mr. Schaefer's question. Mr.
Great.
Gaines.
Yeah, Chief Counsel Scott, there were questions very similar to this, but I just want to are we fully staffed? Is your department fully staffed?
We do have some vacancies. We're in active recruitment for them right now.
Okay.
If everything goes well, we will fill those positions. If not, we don't want to bring in people just to fill positions.
Right.
We're looking for quality applicants. One of the things that I've been particularly impressed with since I've been here is the overall quality of the staff legal department. Mm-hmm. I don't think we have a weak link in the department, and it's not huge, so I can say that without reservation, and I think we want to certainly maintain that quality. We also have some excellent senior staff that we want to take advantage of training opportunities to bring those in. So, for instance, our new attorney did not come in with a property tax background, but she is being mentored and guided by two of our senior attorneys, is learning very quickly. And so we're looking for people like that. I like to think of them as sponges who have inquisitive minds, are interested in the subject matter, and want to jump in and become productive members of the staff as quickly as they can. So hopefully we'll be able to find those kind of candidates in our recruiting efforts and bring them on board to take on that role.
Good. And how many positions do we have available?
We're currently recruiting for 2 positions.
For 2, okay. And then we'll be full up?
That would be all of the positions that we have. One of the things that always is happening is we're always evaluating our workloads. Do we have enough staff? We haven't done that exercise since I took over as acting chief, and that would be in conjunction with Ms. Renati and her purse strings. So we'd have to look at the budgetary issues as well as the workflow issues. And if necessary, we would decide to move forward to do budget change proposals, but I'm not sure we need to go that way. I think if we were fortunate enough to fill these two positions, at least for the foreseeable future, we'd be in good shape. But that can always change depending upon how the workflow develops.
Yeah. Yeah, given our state budget, I think we can just fill those vacancies.
If I had my crystal ball.
Yeah. All right. Thank you, Chief Counsel Scott. I appreciate it.
Thank you. And we'll go to Mr. Emron and then Mr. Schaefer.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Chief Counsel Scott, as well, for your presentation, and congratulations on the new attorney. It's always exciting to have more beefing up the staff. So when you're saying there's two other attorneys you're actively searching for, is one of them the permanent Chief Counsel position?
No, that does not include the Chief Counsel position.
Got it. So this new attorney's in the property tax appeals. So if these other two attorneys come on, what areas would you assign them to?
Well, property tax is our main workload, so at least one of the attorneys would devote substantial amount of time to that. The other workload we've been looking at augmenting is our Public Record Action Act and disclosure. Just so the board understands, that is not a workload that is simply answering a request and then producing documents. The law provides that all records that are produced by the government are public documents unless there is an exception to the production of those, and there's very specific exceptions. So it's a multi-step process. When we get some requests are pretty simple, but sometimes they'll say we want all the correspondence between X, Y, and Z, including emails and text messages and those kind of things. Sorting that out and then literally looking at sometimes thousands of pages of documents to determine whether there's anything confidential. One of the confidential things, of course, is things like audit selection criteria. Another could be attorney-client privilege documents and things like that. So it requires not just the responding and gathering to the requests, but analyzing the content of the documents to see what we're doing. Right now, one of our attorneys who is primarily responsible for governance is also taking on the laboring oar on the Public Record Act requests, doing an excellent job, but we're also looking at
unknown caller
supplementing that with one of the new positions, not full-time. I mean, we're not a big enough staff where we can just assign someone to one workload. The other issue is we always want to cross-train people. So that person might be involved in, if we were fortunate enough to hire someone to be in Public Records Act. I do think we have a need in contract review, public acquisition kind of thing, those kind of things. And then the property tax workload is always there, always sort of overriding and the various aspects. We have 58 counties, so if they all send in one request for assistance a week, that's a lot of work for a staff of about a dozen attorneys. So, and some of them are simple, some of them aren't so simple. And we also have the file that is the unanswerable questions. So we have a workload that's there that when we have the time and the ability and the right people to do it, we can have them work on those kinds of questions. So that's sort of an overview. I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, very much so. I appreciate the very detailed answer too. And my very, very last question here is, at Tax Program Technical Advice, we have a column here that says special projects. Can you give me an example of what a special project is? I was looking in the memo. I wasn't able to see of what exactly that entails.
I actually asked that question of myself last week, and I'm drawing a blank. If you'd like, I could provide a short memo to the board members to provide that information. I'm sorry, I'm just not recalling it as I sit here now.
That's absolutely fine. I think the board will appreciate it too. Thank you.
And I see Ms.
Here she
Imovitz
goes.
approaching.
The handler of special projects.
Good afternoon, Julia Himovitz on behalf of the legal department. So different things for special projects. When we do collaborations, for example, with board proceedings, walking through the board member reference manual, for example, that would be considered a special project. So something that's not a typical assignment or something that isn't in the regular workflow of what we do that might not come up every month, or, projects like that.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, great. And Mr. Schaefer, did you have questions?
No, I just dropped offline a moment, came back on. That's all it happened.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you. Thank you. Any other questions for Mr. Scott? If not, thank you so much, and thank you for the memo as well. And our next item is item 14, the Communication Chief's Quarterly Report, presented by Mr. Kim. And before you start, Mr. Kim, did we need to take our break earlier? Okay, the technology has been resolved, so we'll go ahead to Mr. Kim. Please proceed.
Yes, thank you. Good afternoon, Chair Lieber and honorable members. I'm Peter Kim, BoE's Chief Communications Officer. Today, I'll provide a brief overview of some major highlights and accomplishments of the department in the second quarter of 2024. Members, as you know, the BoE website is a critical tool in communicating and providing essential and up-to-date information to stakeholders and the general public. I'll first begin with some updates to the BoE website. In the last quarter, since the Proposition 19 webpage was launched on November 10, 2020, there have been approximately 615,974 unique external page views through June 30th of 2024. As noted in my memo to the board, the total number of unique external page views is different from prior reports due to Google Analytics calculating views differently with the recent change to their new version, GA4. Through the board's leadership, a translate button to offer translation to non- or limited English-speaking individuals has been available since June 10th of 2022. The webpage offers 7 language options: Spanish, traditional and simplified Chinese, Filipino or Tagalog, Vietnamese, Korean, and Armenian. There have been approximately 22,588 unique external page views since June 30th of 2024. Next, members, as you know, last quarter, the Communications Department published BoE's fiscal year 2022-23 annual report. The department is responsible every year for coordinating the publication, and there are new features in the new annual report, which include new state maps and data that list the total net assessed values for both the county and state assessed property values, net exemptions, and the average property tax rates for all of the 58 counties. As the BoE is the state's chief agency responsible for property tax administration, it was important to highlight statewide information and data in the annual report. The agency is proud to document our achievements and critical duties through this report. Next, members, I will now briefly recap the new and updated publications that the department facilitated in the second quarter. The publications include the BoE's fiscal year 22-23 annual report, the 2024 Taxpayers Bill of Rights hearing flyer, the new board meeting location notice, and the TRA's new information sheet, property tax savings, transfers between co-tenants upon the death of a co-tenant. Finally, I want to update the board regarding the upcoming 2024 Taxpayers Bill of Rights hearing. I've been closely collaborating with our Chief of the Taxpayer Rights Advocate Office, Lisa Thompson, to promote next month's hearing. In the next week or so, I will electronically send an outreach toolkit to all board member offices to help with promoting this important hearing. So members, this concludes my report, and I'm available to answer any questions you may have. Thank you.
Thank you. Questions for Mr. Kim? Mr. Vasquez.
Thank you, Mr. Kim, for your report. It's real impressive, especially as you're mentioning on the translation services. I know we're really taking off, and as I look at the webpage, there seems to be always things changing and for improvement, and it's done a great job on that. I was just wondering, in terms of Prop 19, in terms of the great stuff you've done on the webpage, are we seeing many more visits in terms of that, specifically in terms of Prop 19?
Thank you for the question, Board Member Vasquez. Yes, I think the visits we've received from the public and our stakeholders have been steady and regular. As I noted in my memo, the calculation has changed a little bit because the system has changed, but generally speaking, it has seen steady and regular visits from the public and stakeholders. Yes.
And lastly, as I've always been appreciative of the annual report and the use of the tool to help the constituents better understand, what the BOE is all about. And as I'm looking at this latest report, with, all the state maps and the data listings and the total net assets values for both the county assessed and state assessed properties values. I was just wondering, of the 58 counties, are you seeing a spike in any one specific county?
That question, I'm not the professional. I just package it and make it look good. So, I mean, if you have any specific questions, maybe I could turn that over to our technical staff. But
No problem.
yeah, really, the key thing was to ensure that we include more statewide information.
Yeah.
As the board is well aware of, our county assessors do a great job in promoting their information on a countywide basis, but really we're the statewide body, and so we wanted to ensure that we provide more of a statewide type of information to our stakeholders and the public.
No, I appreciate it because I've heard nothing but good comments about it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Great. And Mr. Imran?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I want to thank you also, Mr. Kim. Great work here. I really appreciate your report too. And I had a chance actually last night before the meeting, I got to check out the new PSA video, which featured Ms. Thompson. I thought it was very, very nice and well put together. So my one really quick question, when you had that video and it's going up on YouTube, do you also blast it out through the mailers or your newsletter or anything like that to allow more people to reach that type of specific content, especially when it's an announcement?
Yes, thank you for the question, Deputy Controller Emron. I did not want to steal our taxpayer right advocates chief's thunder, who's up next, but of course we will be promoting the Bill of Rights hearing through social media. We just launched the PSA a couple days ago. I don't know if you've seen, but the live broadcast here during breaks and before the live broadcast, it has been aired. So that includes that exposure. Definitely, we will be promoting it through electronic means. Of course, with the assistance from the board with the outreach toolkit, we'll be providing social media graphics, suggested talking points. We will be doing several e-blast messages to both those on the listserv and those that are permit holders for the alcoholic beverage tax. And so, yeah, we'll be doing an extensive outreach campaign, including disseminating a news release as it gets closer to the hearing date.
I appreciate it. I think that's a great idea. I'd encourage too to disseminate that information to the legislators too. I know they have their constituents reach out about property tax matters, and I think the August forum is a great place to come get your tax problem solved. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. I know that Ms. Thompson will allude to it too, but we have been outreaching to the legislature every year. So
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Great. Mr. Gaines?
Yes, just want to thank you, Mr. Kim, for this presentation. And we had spoken briefly about CDTFA and being able to provide information for folks. We get a lot of inquiries in terms of who do we go to, who do we speak to. Many of those have been related to CDTFA. And you had mentioned that there's an opportunity on our website for people to get information as it relates to CDTFA. Can you just go through that a little bit and explain it?
Yes, thank you for the question, Vice Chair Gaines. As we discussed earlier, on the footer of our website, it has something called the external tax resources. And under there, the first link is actually the Department of Tax and Fee Administration. As the board is well aware, many of those statutory programs were once BOE programs, but due to the restructure, of course, some of those programs went to CDTFA. And so acknowledging and recognizing that, we have that prominently displayed at the bottom. Of course, if you do get any type of inquiries from the public regarding CDTFA programs, I know that they also have a taxpayer rights advocate office as well. And so if they have any issues, you could definitely direct it to that office. And I know that our executive director has regular meetings with the CDTFA director, and so, of course, you could definitely directly refer that to Ms. Stowers as well.
Is there, would there be a way that we could make that even clearer in terms of, because the sales and tax use issues are the issues that constituents still think that we address as members of the BoE. And so I'm wondering if there could be some sort of tab on the website on that specific issue for sales and tax related issues, most asked questions or something like that, that could also link them to CDTFA.
Yeah, I could definitely explore that with the team. I do know that one of the reasons why we just have the link directly to CDTFA is, as you know, sir, most of the questions are related to sales and use tax, but CDTFA, if I'm not mistaken, administers over 37 different taxes and fees. And so we didn't want to just limit it to just that tax program, but just really direct them to that website so that they're able to get all of the accurate information for the tax and fee programs that CDTFA directly administers.
Okay, but would someone who is unfamiliar with the change, and I'm, here it's been 7 years, but people still think it's BoE, is external tax resources clear enough?
If I may say, sir, if you do get inquiries with your office, as you're probably well aware of, I'm assuming many of your constituents are actually contacting you on FTB matters, IRS matters, EDD matters, because ultimately, this board is the only elected tax board in the nation. So they're contacting you as the representatives for tax purposes. And so I think actually it's a great opportunity for you and your staff to engage with your constituents, even though it may not be under our jurisdiction, for the board and the board member staff to engage and educate the public in terms of the different tax entities, whether it's federal or state.
Okay. Yeah. All right. So you're not hearing that there's any issues with people's ability to get where they need to go in terms of gathering information as it relates to tax issues that are not under the jurisdiction of the BoE?
That's correct. And I think anytime we get inquiries about former tax programs that the BoE administer, we definitely direct them to CDTFA. And I think throughout the years, more people are realizing that some of those tax programs are now in fact with CDTFA. So I think over time, it'll only get better in terms of knowing what tax programs are under what tax entity.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you.
Of course.
Okay. Mr. Schaefer, did you have any questions on this item?
Yes, I did. I did. I appreciate your consideration. Mr. Kim, I have a non-technical issue. I'm spoiled by, I think, the Public Utilities Commission ending their annual report in December 31st, like most corporations do, but ours ends the prior June. I've mentioned this before. We get our report early, like I think you gave it to us in April or May. We've had a couple of months to look it over, and I'm very pleased with it. It's just I would like us at some point in time to have it close out December 31st, just change our year so that if we're going to give it out in April, like most corporations do, we would cover everything from 4 months back for the prior year. Right now, we're 10 months back because we always end June 30th. Am I asking for something that's not practical?
Thank you for the question, Board Member Schaefer. No, it's not unpractical. I understand and appreciate what your concerns and comments are. I do want to just share with you, sir, that our annual reports have been issued on a fiscal year basis since all of the publications of our annual reports going back to the early 1900s, if I'm not mistaken. So just the fact that because of the different revenue numbers, just collecting and gathering all of the information, and the fact that the state is really based on a fiscal year type of budget for revenue purposes, as well as the county assessors. They actually close their rolls on a fiscal year basis. So those are the types of different factors that are the reasons why we issue our fiscal year annual reports in that manner. But I have heard from you and the board that if we can issue the annual report sooner, we can do that. And so we are making that effort. But I hope that answers your question, sir.
Sure. Well, you know that other agencies of government have closed out December 31st. I'm not sure whether it's PUC, but I did find at least one example of another agency that was following the calendar year, and that's where I got the bright idea. But I can see what you point out. There are some differences, and I'm not trying to change 120 years of activity unless there's some reason for it. And my reason has been sort of conformity with what people are used to. But as you point out, there are exceptions. It's just if other agencies of California government can close out on December 31st, I don't see why we couldn't. But I thank you for your explanation. I had another concern. Tell me something. How many copies of the annual report were distributed?
Yes, thank you for the question. We do not distribute the publication in a hard copy very much. We primarily distribute them electronically, whether it's promoting it through our social media channels or through different types of avenues electronically. But we do print, I would say, probably less than 100, just so that we have copies. And I know that I have provided physical copies to the board, and they can be printed. Additional copies can be printed if necessary. But yeah, primarily we distribute them and share them electronically.
Who gets most of them? We don't give them to the legislature, or we would have 120 to start with.
We do transmit the electronic versions to the Legislative Council, as well as the Chief Clerk of the Assembly, as well as the Secretary of the Senate. We do send a physical copy to the governor because we do address the annual report to the governor as mandated by government code. But primarily, the annual reports are for stakeholders, for those that visit the BoE at our office, whether it's our advisory council members or other type of stakeholders that would like or request more information about the BoE.
What about giving them to libraries in California, or at least in Northern California? Do they all get electronically or not at all? I would think sending a hard copy to a library might be a good investment.
We could definitely explore that. As you know, sir, we're trying to be mindful of any type of additional costs due to the current fiscal situation of the state, but that is something we can definitely explore and see how we can increase the exposure of the annual report.
Yes. And do we do a notice for our taxpayers meeting coming up in, say, the Sacramento Bee? I know they may not want to give it to us for free. I've saved $3,000 a month by moving my office from downtown to a suburb. I'd donate that $3,000 to put an ad in the Sacramento Bee just to let people know that we're going to have our meeting in August. Do we get into the Bee at all? I think a lot of government fans are reading the Bee, and that's an important place for us to be talking about it. If we don't get an elaborate write-up of the event, then pay for it. I think it's a good investment. Tell us about our relationship with the Sacramento Bee on the taxpayers conference coming up.
Yes, so traditionally we do not do any paid advertisements, but as I briefly mentioned in my report, I do issue a news release statewide so that all of the press are aware of this upcoming important hearing. Of course, it just depends on whether the press covers the topic, but definitely We do our best to urge them to cover and to promote it. And I know that in the past, several news outlets did in fact promote it on our behalf.
Yeah. Well, thank you for that. In addition to being concerned about whether they covered it or not, I like to be concerned that they reference it whenever they have an opportunity to reference events going on in the community, because there's a lot of people with time on their hands that if they know about it, they'll drop by. It's one of the more worthwhile public forums, I think, going on in the state, in Sacramento, other than the legislature. And everything we can do to toot our horn, I applaud that. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. I do agree with that. And I know that our chief, Lisa Thompson, did provide the board physical copies of the flyers too. And hopefully, I know that the board is very active in your districts. And so whenever there's an opportunity to promote it with the flyers, I know that both me and Lisa Thompson are appreciative of those efforts too.
Well, Ms. Thompson does a very good job. I commend both of you. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Schaefer. So if there are no further questions, thank you so much for your report, Mr. Kim. We appreciate that. And we're going to, before we go on to item 15, it is just 2 minutes before we're supposed to take our 10-minute break. And so we'll take our 10-minute break and then come back for item 15 in just 10 minutes from now at 2:35. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Lisa Thompson, the State Board of Equalization's Taxpayers' Rights Advocate. Taxpayers and stakeholders are invited to this year's Taxpayers' Bill of Rights hearing before the elected members of the State Board of Equalization on Tuesday, August 27, 2024 at 10 a.m. You can participate in person, by phone, or submit written comments before the hearing. We welcome comments, suggestions, or concerns about California's property tax system, the annual report, and the alcoholic beverage tax program. For more information, please visit www.boe.ca.gov/TRA. We look forward to your participation.
again. And they're giving me that high sign from back there. And our next item is item 15, the Taxpayer Rights Advocate's Office report. And Ms. Thompson will be presenting.
Hello, good afternoon, Chair Lieber and honorable board members. My name is Lisa Thompson. I'm the Chief of the Taxpayer Rights Advocate Office, and I'm here to provide you an update on the activities of the TRA office. And first, I will provide some statistics on completed cases by the Taxpayers Rights Advocate Office last month. We completed 41 cases. 13 were in Vice Chair Gaines's district, District 1. 16 were in Chair Lieber's district, District 2, and 8 were in Board Member Vasquez's district, District 3, and 7 were in Board Member Schaefer's district, District 4. 15 were from the administrative category, and 26 from the valuation category. The memo that is attached to the public agenda notice provides additional detail on the topics within each of those categories. The topic in the administrative category with the highest number of completed cases was delinquent and defaulted property taxes with 8 cases. For the valuation category, there was a tie for the largest topic areas within change in ownership and exclusions from reassessment, each with 5 completed cases. Of the 5 exclusion cases, 4 were for transfers between parents and children, and 1 was for base year value transfer for seniors. I would also like to inform the board that our office has completed several steps toward publicizing and promoting the upcoming 2024 Taxpayer Bill of Rights hearing that will be held August 27th, 2024. Our office has worked in collaboration with our agency's communications officer, Mr. Peter Kim, and the media productions team of the California Department of Tax and Fee Administration to make a public service announcement that was posted to our agency's website last week. And that public service announcement basically was posted to the TRA page, and it invited taxpayers, stakeholders, and other interested parties to come to the Taxpayer Bill of Rights hearing before this elected board to have their voices heard and to participate in the hearing. As Mr. Kim indicated, that PSA has aired during the breaks for this Bill of Rights hearing as well as before it. So we're trying to take advantage of promoting that hearing. Also, I would like to extend my appreciation to the CDTFA Media Productions team for all of their excellent work on this year's public service announcement as well as past years. I would also like to personally thank Jeremy with their team, who has done just amazing work and been incredible in the production throughout this this PSA as well as for the last 3 years. So he's been involved since the beginning in 21 when we started it. So thank you, Jeremy. Also, the electronic public comment form was made available on the TRA web pages last week. So that is available for people to do that, to submit their comments electronically. I'm also working with a communications chief to publicize this very important event. Again, as he had indicated, he will be providing your offices with a toolkit, an outreach toolkit that can be used to assist in the promotion of the hearing. So we very much appreciate your leadership and assistance to promote that very important hearing. Further outreach efforts will be made in advance of this hearing. We will be issuing a news release, sending e-blasts to alcoholic beverage taxpayers and subscribers, as well as the TRA Bill of Rights hearing listserv, so recipients know that they can participate or how to view the hearing next month. Mr. Kim will also be doing various social media posts. I will also be inviting various statewide taxpayer and stakeholder organizations to notify them about the hearing and ask for their assistance in publicizing this event. As to address Mr. Emron's comment from prior speaker is we will be asking legislative offices to help us in promoting the hearing. I send an email to the Senate and Assembly chiefs of staff asking them if they could notify their constituents, and we've been well received in the past, and they have done some social media posts and things. So also, we will invite the Executive Director's Advisory Council members and request their assistance to publicize this event. Similar to the past, I will also be notifying various taxpayer organizations. There are 9 actually that are included, again, asking them if they can notify their constituent or their memberships so they're aware of it. We do look forward to the taxpayer rights hearing and appreciate the board's leadership and support for outreach efforts so we can get as many people aware of it as possible. And I look forward to the upcoming Bill of Rights hearing. I'm available if you have any questions.
Great. Are there any questions? Mr. Gaines?
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. Are there any Prop 19 cases included in this group of 41 that you're reporting on?
Yeah, so there were 5 exclusion numbers. Let's see. Yeah, so 5 exclusion cases. Generally, the majority of our cases now, at least that we're completing, are during the time of current law of Proposition 19. So they all had effective dates of, in 2021. So those were all pertaining to that. So.
Okay. And do we get very many cases where we're able to provide clarity on interpretation of value that is helpful to the constituent?
I think we provide value to the constituents from my team,
Oh.
but it's not always maybe what the taxpayer is hoping for. In some cases, like for the parent-child exclusion. So let's say somebody, was in an unfortunate situation to have their parents pass, and they have moved into the home, but they weren't either for whatever reason weren't aware of. That they needed to file, quickly, but they happened to move into the house within 1 year, or they were living with that parent, as a caregiver and continued to live there. Although they may not have filed the parent-child exclusion within the 1 year mark, they can still get prospective relief. So we explained to them the importance of, getting the homeowner's exemption in time to do that. So we we did have a situation where it happened to be, right before this was in November, December timeframe, but they had a very short time period where they could go ahead and file the homeowner's exemption claim. So it could be retroactive actually to the lien date before.
Sure.
So that saved them quite a bit of money.
Okay. And then also more broadly, beyond Prop 19, are we able to provide clarity for the constituent? Because let's say there's lack of clarity at the local level, and then you examine it, and you're able to provide more information that provides more clarity that is helpful for the constituent.
If you're speaking to in the area of the Prop 19.
No, beyond.
Just beyond.
Yeah, just in general.
Oh, well, I mean, when we answer taxpayer cases, we provide a background in the topic area that pertains. So in some cases, depending on it, we might have an information sheet out of the Taxpayer Rights Advocate Office that we try to, direct them to, just so they have the information or may have it, for in the future, or could direct them to a family, friends. But yeah, we do provide, information beyond yes, no answer to all of our constituents and try to help them understand as much as we can. We always offer taxpayers to, if they have additional questions, they can, of course, ask additional questions if they have questions on what information we provided to them.
Okay. So it sounds like it's primarily clarification for the taxpayer that we're providing information or clarification.
I guess it just depends. What the situation is. We have also, maybe disabled veterans that have filed a claim for exemption, or there might have been a case where they have filed for, a parent-child exclusion, and it's, a financial burden on them to, be able to, pay the amount. And so we might contact the assessor's office to ask if they can expedite the claim, filing, the processing, and usually they do do that. So we're able to do that, or, in some cases, explain to them what information that they might provide to an assessor's office, to prove something. They might have to, prove, say, that a proportional transfer occurred when they transferred real property to, say, a limited liability company that particular person had a full membership interest in, such that they would be excluded and not be reappraised for that property. So,
Okay.
I think that we provide a wide variety of services to the taxpayers that call our offices. It's, we have all the topic
Yeah.
areas, so yeah.
Right. How about responses by taxpayers? Positive, negative, neutral?
Sometimes, somebody might, say that they really appreciate our services. I think most of the time we provide their services and, they don't really respond. They just, I think a lot of people just, they may appreciate it, but they don't take the time to, to say anything. But
Okay. Well, thank you. I appreciate what you're doing. Thanks for the reporting too, the way you're presenting it. I appreciate that.
Thank you. And we're happy to help taxpayers. We don't need a thank you, really. We're happy just to help them out.
Yeah, I know you do. Thank you.
Thank you. Other questions? Seeing none, Mr. Schaefer, did you have any questions?
Yeah, so thank you, Ms. Thompson. That was a very compact and fruitful report. I want to thank you. I had a question. You've been with the Taxpayers Advocates meeting now for 10 years or something like that?
I was appointed in 2018 for here, but I've been with the board for a long time. I was with the Property Tax Department for many years.
Could you tell me, does the Sacramento Bee ever report on what we're doing as far as that Taxpayers Advocate meeting? Do they ever consider it news, or do they list it as an event, or have we ever bought a quarter-page ad to announce that it's coming? I'm just concerned how the people that follow these things who live in Sacramento get to know about it.
Yeah, I'll certainly talk with our communications officer to see about that. But we do, again, as he indicated in his presentation, we do a lot of social media posts, and again, getting the word out through the legislature and that. So, but I appreciate your comment. Thank you.
Okay, well, thank you. I appreciate it. I have nothing further.
Thank you, Mr. Schaefer. I think that's it. We really appreciate your report, Ms. Thompson. I love a report where District 2 is coming in so strongly. Month over month, it seems like we're getting good participation from that part of the state. So I really appreciate it, and especially since those reflect closed cases. It's fantastic, the service that you and your staff provide. So thank you.
Thank you.
Great. We will go on now to item 16, the Property Tax Deputy Director's Report. Mr. Young, please proceed. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair Lieber, honorable members of the board. Once again, David Young, Deputy Director of the Property Tax Department. So I will just begin with a very, very brief report on the Property Tax Department in general. We've been very, very busy for the last quarter, actually last several months, with all this hiring and filling of our positions, our staff. Not only do we have to onboard the new hires, but we invest heavily in their training and to get them to be fully functional journey level appraisers, auditors, and whatnot. So that takes a little bit. So I wanted to recognize our staff and their continued efforts in the recruitment, hiring, onboarding, and training of all our new employees. So thank you. So with that, I have 4 reports for you from the Property Tax Department. The first 2 will be by Ms. Lauren Keach. She's the Chief of the CAPD. It will be the report on letters to assessors, followed by a report on training and certification. After that, Holly Cooper, Chief of the Assessment Practices Survey, will update you on the quarterly report as to what's been going on in surveys. And at the very end, Mr. Jack McCool, Chief of the State Assessed Properties Division, will let you know what's going on in state assessed properties. So with that, if you're ready, I will turn it over to Ms. Keach for the first 2 reports.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Chair Lieber and honorable board members. I'm Lauren Keach, Chief of the County Assessed Properties Division. Today, I'll provide you with a brief report on letters to assessors. Attached to this month's agenda is a memo on letters to assessors, which provides a list of the LTAs that have been issued since our last board meeting. In addition, the memo provides a link to the BoE's website where a list of all LTAs can be found that have been issued to date. As of the date of the attached memo, BoE staff has issued a total of 24 LTAs for calendar year 2024. Since our last board meeting, 4 of those LTAs had been issued, and those 4 LTAs are summarized as follows. An LTA to announce the 2024 Taxpayers Bill of Rights hearing on Tuesday, August 27th, 2024. An LTA to announce the County Assessment Appeals filing period for 2024. An LTA announcing the listing of state assessees, and a supplemental LTA for the 2024-25 income levels for the welfare exemption. This concludes my report on letters to assessors. I'm available to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you. Any questions for Ms. Keach on the LTAs? Seeing none, thank you.
All right. I will now provide a brief report on the BoE's appraisal, training, and certification program. For the 2024-25 fiscal year, BoE staff has scheduled 31 classes and 2 workshops. Staff is working to schedule additional classes using instructors from county assessors' offices. Since the beginning of the fiscal year, the BoE has taught 1 class. We continue to offer our existing online basic training courses available through American River College and California State University, Sacramento, as well as online courses and self-study training sessions that are available on our website. This concludes my report on training and certification. I'm available to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you. Any questions for Ms. Keach on the appraisal, training, and certification? Mr. Gaines.
Yeah, great. Thank you, Madam Chair. Ms. Keach, are we on track in terms of classes and workshops offered as compared to past years?
Yes, we are on track, and we've actually increased the number of classes as well as added some new classes due to instructors that we've been hired recently. So for example, courses on auditing that haven't been available for some time. Okay. Those are now on our current schedule, so we're excited to see some new material coming out there that we can provide for the assessors' offices. Okay, and those additional classes are just based on demand, or? Yes, so we do our survey based on demand, but also just based on our ability to offer them. So with the fact that we have the ability, we want to be able to offer as many courses as we can. So yeah, we're just trying to continue to increase the quantity and the quality and just offer as much variety as we can. Great. Yeah, thank you. Thank you for that question.
Mr. Vasquez.
Thank you for your presentation, Ms. Keach. I was just noticing on the 31 classes, are those all is that a combination of in-person and virtual?
Yes, so that does account for all BoE classes. So 8 of those are in person, and the remaining 25 are virtual. As of now, we have a minimum requirement for the in-person, so if we don't meet that, then we would flip it to virtual. But in the past, we have seen when we do flip the classes, they tend to fill up for other counties. So that's where we're at right now, about 75% virtual, 25% in person.
Because when you do in person, what's the, you said there's a minimum. What is it, the minimum?
Yeah, so we require a 12 student minimum for in-person with up to 35 for in-person based on classroom size and instructor capabilities to best meet the student demands.
And I'm assuming it's a lot easier to fill it virtually, right?
Yes, in the past we've seen when we flip them, they tend to quickly fill up, as many of our virtual classes also have wait lists. So we can offer it to a larger candidate pool.
Thank you.
That's great. Any further questions on this training item? Okay, seeing none, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Up next, we have Ms. Holly Cooper.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, Chair Lieber and honorable members of the board. My name is Holly Cooper, Chief of the Assessment Practices Survey Division. Today I will be presenting a summary of the Assessment Practices Survey reports. Thank you. issued the second quarter of 2024. However, before I get started, I would like to provide a brief background on the programs administered by the division. In terms of current auditing practices, what we refer to as an assessment practice survey is actually a compliance audit, and the BoE survey team's primary objective is to determine whether assessments are being made in accordance with property tax law. The division's major functions are to provide a qualitative audit by reviewing the assessor's policy and procedures, and to perform a quantitative audit by sampling representative assessments from the property tax rolls. During the second quarter of 2024, we have issued one report via letters to assessors for Trinity County, located in District 2. The BoE performed an assessment sampling survey, and the report reflects the BoE's review of Trinity County's 2022-23 assessment roll, which contained 14,273 assessments with an enrolled taxable value of approximately $2 billion. Trinity had an average assessment ratio of 99.54%, and the sum of absolute differences measuring disparity among assessments was 1.31%, which is well within tolerance. In summary, the BoE found no significant assessment problems as defined in Rule 371 in the report issued during the second quarter of 2024. Therefore, Trinity County Assessor is eligible to receive reimbursements of costs associated with administering the supplemental assessments. This concludes my quarterly report on assessment practice surveys. I'm available to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you. Any questions for Ms. Cooper? Seeing any? Okay.
All right.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Jack McCool will finish up for the Property Tax Department.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, Chair Lieber and honorable members. My name is Jack McCool, Chief of the State Assessed Properties Division. Today, I'll provide information on the status of ongoing work in our division. With the adoption earlier today of both the private railroad car and state assessed property rolls, SAPD staff will now prepare next steps. For the private railroad car assessees, notices will be sent to each assessee notifying them of their assessed value amount and information for how they may dispute the assessed value. In contrast to the state assessed roll, BoE is responsible for all functions of the private railroad car roll. Our staff will now begin preparing the tax bills, which will be sent to PRC taxpayers. Once the tax bills are sent in October, we will be responsible for collecting the tax, which is then deposited in the state's general fund. Our partners in CDTFA's accounting unit process the tax bill payments for us, but BoE is responsible for issuing the tax bills, as well as any late notices or delinquent account notices. SAPD will also transmit the final state assessed property roll to each county, as mentioned earlier today. The roll is transmitted in both hard copy and electronic format to each of the 58 counties. The counties will apply the applicable tax rates to our assessed values. The counties will also issue the tax bills and collect the property tax, which stays at the local level. SAPD staff will also send each assessee notice of their assessment. Each notice provides information on deadlines to file an appeal and includes the Board Proceeding Division's guidelines on how to file a tax appeal. SAPD auditors have already begun work on this year's audit program. Routine property tax audits are performed by the State Assessed Properties Division to determine the accuracy, completeness, and reliability of the financial data furnished by assessees and used by the board in the valuation process. Audit findings that result in a recommended change in the assessee's value will be brought before the board for your consideration in future months. The other area that will comprise most of SAPD's workload in the next few months will be the appeals. The filing deadline to submit a petition for unitary property reassessment is normally July 20th. However, due to July 20th falling on a weekend this year, assessees had until yesterday, July 22nd, to file. The deadline to file a petition for non-unitary property assessment is September 20th. September 20th is also the deadline to file a petition for private railroad car reassessment. All appeals must be filed with the Board Proceedings Division. Board Proceedings has the responsibility of determining if each petition meets the requirements of the rules for tax appeals before each petition can be accepted. Assessees also have the ability to request an extension for additional time to file their petition. SAPD staff have already begun to work diligently on the unitary petitions that have been forwarded to us. Over the course of the next few months, our staff will be working in close partnership with both the Board Proceedings Division as well as the Board's legal department during the appeals season. That concludes my report, and I'm happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Questions, Mr. Emron?
Madam Chair, I don't have a question for Mr. McCool. I did have a question for Mr. Young, if that's okay.
Okay.
But if
Let me
the
see
other
if
board
there's
members
any
want to go first.
questions for Mr. McCool before we'll take Mr. Vasquez, and then we'll come back for Mr. Young.
Real quick, first of all, thank you for your presentation, Mr. Cool. And as you mentioned, the increased workload that's been happening here, especially on the unitary value appeals, I was wondering, are you finding that the BoE's success over these past few years, what impact that's had on your resources in terms of staffing?
That's a very good question. I think from our division's perspective, having more staff would be helpful. The workload is something that we can definitely handle. To the extent that we have additional time to devote fully to a submitted study, for example, I think those are some of the challenges that we might have had in the last few years. Is we have enough staff to complete the workload, but we do have some vacancies that do limit our ability to do additional work that we would like to take on, but perhaps don't have the time or resources for. But the core functions we definitely are able to accomplish with the staff we have.
On the appeals as well, you're saying?
Correct.
Thank you.
And again, every year the appeals workload fluctuates.
Right.
Last few years we've had a workload that is slightly below a 5 and 10 year average. It remains to be seen what the workload will look like for this year. And we'll probably have a better idea in the next probably 2 weeks what the full workload for appeal season will be.
Thank you.
Okay, super. And Mr. Schaefer, did you have any questions on this
No, thank you,
particular
Madam
segment?
Chair, I don't.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Gaines, did you have one?
If I could, just to follow up on the earlier question, in terms of vacancies, were we not short on, was it auditor appraisers?
Correct. Yes.
And are we making progress in that regard?
So unfortunately with that particular issue, it's largely out of our hands. There's a process going through with California Human Resources Department, and that's an ongoing process.
Would it be possible to get an update on what's happening with that, with Lisa Renati? I remember when I took my little tour, that was the issue that came up, right?
I'm Lisa Renati, Chief Deputy Director, and thank you for the question, Vice Chair. We are in two concurrent processes. One process is to adjust our classifications for our appraiser series, and that's to bring us a true entry-level class, which allows us to have education or experience. When it comes to our auditor appraiser class, unfortunately, we can't do that because we need that accounting degree, so we can't make it education or experience. So we're working with CalHR on a request to allow us to use the tax auditor classification that's specific to CDTFA. So we've asked to borrow that position, and CDTFA has been on our side and helping us. They're agreeable to that, but we need approval from CalHR. So we're in that long process, and they are currently reviewing our request. And
Do you have an idea of the timeline before?
I wish. I'm cautiously optimistic. That's what I'm saying. I send reminders like every once in a while. How's it going? Any questions you need? And I get back that they're working on it. With that, they are a little busy right now with the budget and all of the
Yes.
different issues that have come forward, so trying to be patient.
You think by year end we'll know anything, or?
I think we will. No, we will know one way or the other, and if our request is denied, then we're prepared to, another tactic we have in our back pocket that we're prepared to go use next.
Okay.
So we
And
won't give up.
That's something that would naturally be in a report as you get updates?
As we do, we're just trying, we just don't want to have anyone, we don't want to step on any toes.
Yes. Yeah.
Just hopeful.
Okay. That's great. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you for the question.
Okay, thank you. And we'll pull Mr. Young back up, and we have a question from Mr. Emron.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I want to thank you, Mr. Young, for the report. I also wanted to talk really quickly about the solar energy system property tax exclusion.
Yes.
If you know anything about it, I'm just going to give some context here. California has a property tax exclusion for solar energy systems installed before January 2025. This exclusion not only applies to solar panels, but also to lithium-ion batteries and many types of solar heating systems. So a quick example, assume you own a $700,000 home in California. Considering a 0.7% rate, you would pay $4,900 in property taxes per year. If you install the solar panel and battery system for $30,000, the assessed value of your home and its property taxes would stay the same. Without the tax exclusion, there will be a $30,000 home value increase, which will represent $210 in property tax increases. So we're about the last 6 months here before this exclusion expires. So if you can kind of speak to me a bit how to apply for this program, the communication with the taxpayers, do taxpayers know about this? And if we have any data on the number of people using this exemption currently, I'll be happy to agendize this with a motion at a future date too, if you're more comfortable with that too.
Sure. Be happy to give you some general background on it. Right now, we are aware of the sunset. That is Revenue Taxation Code 73. It will sunset. There's actually, right now, we're working with legal. The Property Tax Department is working with legal to develop some guidance on it. We are drafting it, and we are actually taking some inputs from various stakeholders on it. There is a couple of issues at question, not the least of which is which one. There's actually 2 sunset dates in that section. One is for the lien date of fiscal year 25-26, which is, as you correctly identified, January 1 of 2025, and the other one is at the end of that provision, and that says that it's good until basically it has to be completed before January 1 of 2027. So right now we're working on some guidance to basically flesh that out a little bit and see which one it truly is controlling. So that is actually in the works right now. We expect that to be released as an advisory, as a guidance LTA. So there are a couple of things as to how many of the homeowners are right now caught in that position. I suspect there will be some in there. I don't have a good number on hand as to how many will be in the process of waiting for the sole exclusion to basically sunset while they're waiting for somebody to come and install it on their roof. There is another consideration along with that. Not only is this provision applicable to the solar system on your roof, it's also applicable to utility scale solar facilities. So there are solar facilities that are being put up in various places in California, a lot of it in the desert where there's a lot of sun, and they're actually utility scale. They provide power to thousands and tens of thousands of homes in one fell swoop. So they're very interested in our guidance as to what we think those two seemingly conflicting sunset dates are for the very same exclusion. So we are working on it. I know many folks are watching and trying to wait for our guidance on it.
Do we have a timeline of when that guidance will be released? And is it in the form of an LTA?
It will most likely be in the form of an LTA. We're about mostly done with the drafting of it. It will go through internal review. Our goal is to get it out in probably within a month or two. So that's kind of where we're at right now with the solar exclusion.
So for one example would be if I wanted to reach this exclusion and I started construction in December of 2024, would this exclusion apply through the construction period, or do I have to have those solar panels installed and ready to go for the exclusion to be
Yeah,
practicable?
yeah. So that is one of the many issues at hand. The most plain language read of the law is that it has to be complete. In order for it to fit in, it has to be complete. So it's actual. Because of the limitations of Prop 13, you basically only get to reassess property under two conditions: change in ownership, somebody buys it or sells it, or at the completion of new construction. So this one redefines what completion of new construction is. It does not include the build out of this type of active solar system. So the surest way to do it is it has to be done by the sunset date.
Understood. Thank you.
Of course.
May I ask, if you are about a month out from this LTA being drafted, can you come back at our next board meeting with a full presentation?
We will. A month is very optimistic. I think we're probably within a month or two.
I mean, 2 months is fine
Yeah.
too. Whichever you're more comfortable with, but I'll work with the executive director to make sure that's on the agenda.
Of course.
And of course our chair as well. Thank you.
Great. Any other questions? Mr. Schaefer, any questions for Mr. Young?
No, I don't. Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you. And that would allow us some time to see if some of the advocacy organizations are alerted to that change as well.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Towers is approaching.
Thank you. Clarification, Mr. Imran and Chair Laylor. I'm sorry, are you guys asking for a presentation on active solar and the LTA that we're in the process of finalizing, and you would like for us to come back at perhaps the September or October meeting? We're not going to be prepared. Staff is not going to be prepared to do it at the August meeting. I can say that right now.
That's fine. I think September is doable because the exclusion ends in about 5 months. And this is hundreds of dollars in property tax bills we're talking about. So I want to know how people apply to this, if we're communicating this to taxpayers, if the board should be disseminating this information to make sure people start applying, and the number of how many people are using this exemption currently, how many people are in the process of applying, and how this approval process goes along, especially for those that may or may not be thinking about solar panels on their homes before this exclusion.
We will give you something in September. You have to understand that the exclusion is done at the county level by the assessors. So it would be the assessor's responsibility to educate the property owners on it and how to benefit from it. But we will provide a high level. But what's really the key here is the sunset. And that's where we've been receiving substantial calls from various industries and stakeholders. So that's where our focus is what's the sunset? Is it the January date or is it the June date? Is it completed construction or is it construction in process? And those are some major issues that Mr. Moon, who's probably listening right now, has been working on along with Mr. Young. So it's a major issue for us.
I appreciate you. I appreciate you laying that out. I want this board to be able to get ahead of this issue too, and not wait until December, January when it expires. So if we're able to have a hearing, not a hearing, but get some more information and to kind of see what our next course of action is, I think that would be very, very helpful in this process because a lot of people have been interested in this issue. And I think it's an important one, especially as we move towards a more green economy, and we want to incentivize people who decide if they want to get solar panels or not on their homes.
Okay, I
Pardon
think,
me if
I think we're going,
if I may.
it goes here, so we
got-
must be having too much of a conversation.
Mr.
But okay,
Scott.
we will provide you an overview of it. But I am concerned with the workload of my staff and what I can and can't put on them. And I know they have some assignments that they're working on for the August meeting. And we have our assessors meeting in September. So again, I would take this, it looks like everyone's nodding their head, that they would like to learn more about Active Solar, RTC 73. So we'll provide you with an overview. But again, understanding that the issue is not taxpayer education, the issue is the expiration of it. And the issue is those, especially those large utility facilities and their desire to, they've already tried twice to get it extended. So that is really the next course of action.
Okay.
Okay.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. And that's very good. Thank you so much for the help with that. Mr. Gaines.
Just related to this, I think what we could do is let our constituents know, use our own avenues in each of our offices about the expiration of the exemption, and maybe through our newsletters. Just one pathway, but because I know it's going to take some time to get this on the agenda, but at least I've written that down. I need to put that in my newsletter.
Yeah, that's a great idea, Mr. Vice Chair. And I was just wondering too, if the board has like a one-page fact sheet or something like that we can also disseminate to our constituents, but more to come.
And I see Mr. Norm Scott approaching, potentially about how far we're getting from the agenda item.
Yes, Chair Lieber, that's right. This was not an agendized item, so to the extent that the board contemplates future action, we could certainly place that on a future agenda, but I just wanted to remind everyone that, Mr. Enron's question, very interesting and good for topics, but it was not part of the agenda today.
So, through the chair, if I put a motion down here and have the board approve it, is that okay to just continue
No, sir.
discussions?
I'm sorry, it's not okay. There is no agendized potential action on the agenda, so that would be a Bagley-Keene violation.
Yeah, we don't have the opportunity to do that, but our executive director has noted that the interest in having it back at a future meeting, I think is identified by Mr. Young. The most important thing is getting that LTA out so that the first line of defense is out there for the constituents with their local assessor who will be the one handling it. But it's a good thing for us to find out about in time as well, but we need to have that LTA in place first. But thank you for bringing that to mind, and we're gonna pursue that for sure. So we'll go on now to item 17, the Special Taxes Quarterly Report presented by Ms. Williams. Please proceed.
Good afternoon, Chair Lieber and members of the board. I am Laurel Williams, the BoE's technical advisor for the special tax programs, which include alcoholic beverage tax and tax on insurers. Today, I'll give you a report on our program updates since my last quarterly report. I'll start with the tax and insurers program. This program has a few more accounts since my last report, currently with 2,756 accounts. The revenues for this program in fiscal year 23-24, according to the July 2024 Department of Finance Bulletin, are just shy of $4 billion. This is approximately $50 million, which is less than 1% above the forecasted amount. This program also remains very compliant. The next program is the alcoholic beverage tax program. Currently, there are 10,828 accounts, which is also slightly more accounts than my April report. The most growth in these, or over 50 new wine grower accounts, have been registered. The revenues for this program in fiscal year 23-24, also according to the July 2024 Department of Finance Bulletin are just over $418 million. This is approximately $1 million above the forecasted amount. The opt-in, opt-out rate for the wine grower program remains relatively consistent at approximately 60%. Senate Bill 388, which required beer manufacturer returns to become publicly available starting in July 2024, has an opt-in, opt-out rate. And the opt-out rate for these returns has been at approximately 50%. This program remains very compliant as well. I recently reviewed some of the compliance statistics that I get on a regular basis, and I'd like to share some of those with you. The request for relief from penalty for programs was down, for the alcoholic beverage tax programs was down approximately 10% since the prior fiscal year. In particular, extension requests were down over 40% from the prior fiscal year, and the number of accounts receiving billings and were down approximately 25%, and there were also fewer delinquent returns. These statistics all point to like a very healthy program. I think a lot of these changes are related to the e-filing requirement. Like simple arithmetic errors are no longer a problem. You get an email reminder. So I do think that is helping quite a bit with this program. And as I always like to end with a few trends for the industry, one of the fastest growing sectors within the alcohol industry is the hard fermented alcohol, which most of us would refer to as hard kombucha market. Some of the manufacturers have reported sales increases going above and beyond the 90% mark. And the canned cocktail market has also increased over 180% in the last 5 years. In addition to cans, Gen X is now in the alcoholic consumption, and for that generation, being sustainable and eco-friendly is really important. So marketing is going towards getting some of that generation, and part of that is using boxes and even alcoholic pouches similar to like an applesauce pouch. The pouches seem to be popular with the manufacturers as well because they're lightweight, easy to ship, and easy to store. And also more and more wine is being packaged in boxes and cans. And so we'll have to see if these trends continue throughout the next few years, but those are some current things that are going on within the industry. So unless there are any questions, this concludes my report for this quarter.
Thank you. Any questions? Yes, Mr. Gaines.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just to clarify, I think you said the cocktail market is growing?
The canned cocktail market.
Yes, canned, right.
Yeah.
And did you say that was with, which generation were you?
Oh, Gen Z.
Gen Z.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, interesting. Thank you. I appreciate it.
No, you're welcome.
Okay. Seeing no one else, thank you so much for this information, Ms. Williams. It's always interesting every time you come here.
Thank you. You're welcome.
Thank you. And our next item up is item 18, our Legislative Research and Statistics Division Chief's Report with Mr. Angelo.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, Chair Lieber, and members. Ted Angelo with the Legislative Research and Statistics Division. You heard a little bit today about some of the other things that my division does from Mr. McCool. Some of my highly skilled analysts in the research area of my unit helped calculate the rate for the private railroad car tax rate and where the state assessed applies it. So you can see how the county assessed, the state assessed, and the research units all kind of work in tandem to do those things together. Some of them have different responsibilities. So I appreciate his ability to explain it to you better than I could. And secondly, on an anecdotal note, since we are christening and recognizing this wonderful building, one of my staff members that assists in those research areas is actually named May Lee. So I thought that was something that I should note here today because the legacy continues, so to
That's
speak,
great.
and she has big shoes to fill. I don't think that record will ever be broken in terms of years of service, but it's a nice way to recognize and honor her. I'll keep it brief today because they are in summer recess right now. The legislature, I should say, is in summer recess. Right before they went into their month-long recess, returning on August 5th, the policy committees were finishing up all of their hearings. So the Rev and Tax Committee bills that are the board-sponsored measures, SB 1527 and 1528, passed out of those committees and are on their way to appropriations and will be either up on August 5th, the day they return, or during the first couple weeks of August. I think the 19th is the deadline for fiscal committees to meet, and then it's floor session until the end of the month and when session ends. So those bills, I went into great detail last month about what they do, but the 1527 is the low value exemption that we introduced early in the year, the $50,000 low value possessory interest exemption to extend the sunset date 5 years. So that does that. And then 1528 is included the 3 new board-approved and board-sponsored provisions back in April. There's 8 code sections that I won't name today, but those Rev and Tax Code sections will now authorize electronic service of levies under the alcoholic beverage tax program that we were just hearing about, otherwise known as serving a notice of determination or notice of jeopardy determination. The second amends 2 Rev and Tax Code sections to align the insurance tax program with the other tax and fee programs administered by CDTFA on behalf of BoE with respect to the 10-day public disclosure requirement for credits, cancellations, and refunds of more than $50,000. And the third is to amend Rev and Tax Code sections 32202 and 32452 to require electronic filing of supplemental reports, including schedules required from alcoholic beverage licensees. And we've talked about those in great detail before, so I won't go into them any further. The other 2 bills you took action on today as board supported, and those are both going to appropriations. One, I believe, is already on suspense file, not because of a significant cost, but because of the state budget that we're dealing with right now. I'm sorry if there's feedback. AB 1868 and 1879 that we already heard about in great detail earlier today, so I will not summarize those again. Let's see here. AB 2353 is the other bill that the board supported by Assemblymember Ward for the delinquencies and prohibiting tax collectors from taking action and charging interest on properties levied if that taxpayer has filed an application for low-income rental welfare exemptions. That exemption is operative for 5 years pursuant to the bill's amendments that were taken in the Appropriations Committee, so it sunsets at the end of 2029, 2030. So I would just give a technical update on that. The bill was amended in July in the committee to have some technical updates that are that really don't change the spirit of what the bill is doing, but they use some terminology in the bill, but that's slightly different. They use property owner instead of taxpayer, ad valorem to make sure which property taxes are included and which ones are not, and define facilities that are in the course of construction as defined in section 214.2 of the Rev and Tax Code, just making these things clarified as to which ones would actually get the benefit. And those also that are receiving tax credits from the California Tax Credit Allocation Committee or an award of funds from the Department of Housing and Community Development, including a copy of the reservation letter or notice of award. So those were things that were required by the policy committees and the fiscal committees to kind of whittle down those that would meet the standard. But again, not changing the spirit of what was originally intended for that affordable housing method. A few of the other bills, and I'm going to end briefly. AB 2897, which is the Community Land Trust Bill, that's going to be up on August 5th in Senate Appropriations. SB 1164, which was the ADU bill, did not make it out of Policy Committee, and that is another budget-related issue because that was, while well-intended, classifying newly constructed for 10 years being excluded was a little bit too much for the budget situation we're dealing with right now, according to the legislature. So that bill would have to be reintroduced since this is the end of the 2-year session. There are a few other bills dealing with disabled veterans exemptions that were, one is SCA 6 and one SB 871 for exemptions. They're both passed and held at the desk, and those are cost issues as well. Those are the ones that allow a dwelling that receives a veteran's exemption or disabled veteran's exemption to also receive the homeowner's exemption. And again, it's a cost issue. They are still alive, but they are pending, and they could remain pending depending on what the legislature wants to pursue. And again, well-intended legislation. Everybody wants to help veterans. It's just the budget situation we're tasked with right now. So, with that, I'm gonna stop. Again, as you all and I've mentioned many times, I send out weekly updates. Except for right now, while they're in recess, I haven't been doing it because the bills aren't being amended per se. And those will continue when they reconvene on August 5th. If you have any questions on any of the bills that I normally send out or those that I covered today or didn't cover, I can try to answer them.
Okay, thank you. Questions? Mr. Vasquez.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And thank you, Mr. Angelo, for the update. And I was just wondering, in your presentation, did you mention AB 2238, the low bill?
I did not.
And it's my understanding that's, the FTB membership, it looks like it passed the Senate Rev and Tax Committee and went back to appropriations on June 26. Do we have an update on where that's at by any chance?
It's scheduled for Senate Appropriations on August 5th.
It is, okay.
But I would say that it had a little difficulty getting out of committee. Its last, it just barely made a motion and barely got out not because of strong support or strong opposition or super controversial. The chair of the committee did not vote in favor of it, and it took a couple of calls. And that's when a bill goes on call, and then they bring it up later in the hearing. It was really like the last item taken up, and it made it out. Without no votes, it wasn't having strong support across the board from the full committee. So whether or not they want to see those changes or not, we'll see. But it is scheduled for appropriations, and I don't think it has a significant cost attached to it. So we'll see as that moves forward.
Thank you.
And I had a follow-on question about that one. In the history, it said that it was passed but referred to approps and that it was going to come back to rev and tax. It was a little bit confusing what the path was for it.
I would have to check the legislative history on that. My understanding is it passed the committee, and I don't believe it was amended that day in committee, so it wouldn't come back unless there was new subject matter amended into the bill and it needed to go, from either the appropriations back to committee or from the floor back to committee. They usually don't re-refer a bill back to committee once it's due pass, regardless if it's amended or not. So it may have just been a strange anomaly in the update, or it may be some kind of procedural, because the bill made it before the deadline, so it didn't miss a deadline, it didn't need a rule waiver or anything like that. So I will look into that.
That would be helpful. I'd be really curious because I just thought it was an odd phrasing of it. So I'd be interested. Mr. Gaines, did you have a question? Mr. Emron, nothing? Okay, well, thank you so much for this update, and
Appreciate
we'll
it.
see what happens when they come storming back in on
Yes.
the 5th.
Never a dull moment.
No, thank you. Members, what we're going to do right now is to take public comment for all of the executive director reports items. And we didn't, oh, excuse me, Mr. Schaefer, did you have a question for Mr. Angelo?
Yes.
Oh, Mr. Angelo, if we could get you back up.
Yes, yeah, Mr. Angelo. I'd like to ask you, Mr. Angelo, do you run into our assessors sometimes as you go about the city or about the state? I mean, we have 58 of them. I suppose you meant more than a couple of them. Do you put out a newsletter to them once a month on legislative issues? How do they learn about legislative issues?
Well, they have their own association, so they learn a lot because they actually sponsor legislation themselves. So the California Assessors Association is made up of all of them, and they have a board and president. So they take positions on legislation and sponsor it themselves. I have met them, but mostly during our annual meeting like we had last year, and one that will be coming up again soon. And they're fine people, and I've met quite a few of them either on digital meetings that we've had or during that meeting, but not out and about, roundabout town. They're usually in their districts, I believe.
Sure. Well, anytime you have a chance to share a lunch with them or find out if they have any issues on their mind that affect the legislature, you know, we all learn from that. I'm not in Sacramento, so I don't have the chance you do to touch base with the people that are at least in your community, which are, I imagine, 2 or 3 assessors at least. I'm glad that you do know some of them, and we'll all get to know more of that when we get together with them at our next group meeting. I want to know that they are aware of legislation like you help us be aware of legislation, and if their own association is not paying that much attention to the legislature, you are a point man that can be aware of what's going on and help them if they need it. Okay?
I appreciate that. And they are so savvy that I would say that they know to go to Dave Young first in property tax to talk about things legislatively to see if they're even viable before they even come my way. So they know what they're doing.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Angelo. Great. Now we're going to go to public comment for items 10 through 18, and we do not have written comments nor comment cards from the auditorium. So we're going to go to our AT&T moderator. Moderator, could you tell us if there's anyone holding on the line who would like to make a comment on items 10 through 18?
If you would like to provide public comment for items 10 through 18, please press 10 at this time. Command again is 1, then 0. And we have no comments.
Thank you. Members, the last item that we have for today is closing remarks, and then we'll go to our adjournment. Does anyone have a closing remark that they'd like to make? Mr. Vasquez.
Just an adjourning motion, and I might have mentioned it back in May, but I don't think I had some of the information that I wanted to share with you. Back in May, I had planned to adjourn our meeting that month in honor of two individuals, Peggy Moore and Hope Wood, who two community activists who were among 4 people tragically killed in a car crash in Fallbrook, San Diego County on Friday, May the 10th of 2024. Peggy and Hope founded the organizational development and consulting firm Hope Action Change and had led it since 2019. They also worked in politics. They met and fell in love during the campaign of former President Barack Obama back in 2008. Before Hope developed the political consultancy firm with Peggy, she was a teacher and a parent, organizer in South and East Los Angeles in 2001, and found her political voice in 2007, 2008 Obama campaign. Hope was also a former teacher, fellow of Harvard Kennedy School Leadership Organizing and Action Leading Change course, and alum of UCLA Teacher Education Program. She devoted 2 decades of her life organizing across California and the United States, and just wanted to adjourn in her honor and her memory. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you very much for that reflection on the lives of Peggy Moore and Hope Wood, and I think about them often, and in particular, they would have loved these days.
Right.
Any other comments, Mr. Emron?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just want to thank all my colleagues here at the Board of Equalization and the Executive Director, the agency staff as well, for a great meeting. I really appreciate you guys sticking this out with us when it's 107 degrees outside. But I just wanted to give a real in memoriam to 2 public servants. Today there's a memorial service held for a Vacaville police officer, Matthew Bowen, who died in the line of duty on July 11th after getting hit by a suspected DUI driver. Officer Bowen was a dedicated and model police officer, loving father and husband, and on behalf of the controller, I send my condolences to him and his family in a very tragic time. And then down south in Southern California, there's another public servant. He was a Caltrans worker, 55-year-old Alexander Radish, who was struck and killed while working alongside I-5 freeway in San Clemente. He was also a dedicated public servant committed to making our roads safer. And I've sat here on this board, on this dais, speaking time and time again about the dangers of cars. And I just urge everyone, please do not drink and drive. Put your phones down. Distracted driving is not the way to go. Slow down, respect the pedestrians. And I know in life we're in a rush to get to where we want to go, but we're seeing 2 very preventable deaths. And these people were at their jobs working, trying to make a living for themselves and their family, putting themselves in danger. And unfortunately, they weren't able to come make it home. So I just want to extend my condolences to them, 2 great California public servants. May they rest in peace. And want to thank everyone again for their attendance today. Thank you.
Thank you. And if you would extend the condolences of the board to the Bowen and Radish families, we would appreciate it. Anybody else? Mr. Schaefer, do you have any closing comments?
Yes, I just say this is the month that we've had the surprise attack on our former president. It just shows how toxic being in politics is. There's so much economic incentives involved in whatever person leads our state government or our federal government. You have to admire people that step forward and go in there and enter this toxic environment and try to do good. I've lived through several assassination attempts, starting with President Kennedy when I was in college. And I just am very sad to see it happen. But I just think we should take note of it because we're in the same business that they are. And, you know, we need to make love, not war. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Schaefer. Well stated. Well, if there are no other comments, we are at the time to adjourn. And we will now adjourn the board meeting at 3:45 p.m. Our next scheduled board meeting is Tuesday and Wednesday, August 27th through 28th, 2024, at 10 a.m. at the May Lee State Office Complex in Sacramento. Thank you so much.